You see an average run-of-the-mill family all driving down the road, listening to music together, and talking about the beautiful orchestration set before them. It's the beautiful picture of familial bliss. But then, little do you know, you get jump scared by the horrifying heavy metal music and a red title card displaying funny games. You, as the audience, are disturbed, but the family is not, showing the signs of the ignorance they would only know as bliss. This is Funny Games, 1997 horror film by Austrian filmmaker Michael Haneke. Yep, you guessed it. Michael Haneke, born March 23rd, 1942 in Munich, Germany, to father Fritz Haneke and mother Beatrix von Degenschild. He was a director I hadn't encountered before sitting down to watch the 1997 Austrian horror film Funny Games for the first time. If you don't know, the movie is kind of known for being a brutal, unrelenting psychological horror movie that is hard to watch. But even still, it was hard to prepare me to what I was going to see. Funny Games is unrelenting in every sense of the word. I know I keep using the word unrelenting, but it's seriously true. Like, have you seen the movie? It's just horrifying. The movie takes place as we follow Mother Anna, son Georgie, and father Georg as they try and navigate their normal life. However, we see two strange men wearing all white start to play some really suspicious games with them. I won't go into further depth because, again, we haven't hit the spoiler part of the video yet, but you can kind of assume what could be happening. I think Funny Games is beautifully graphic and beautifully horrifying and frustrating of a movie. However, there's another movie that I would also like to talk about. Funny Games is also known for being on that disturbing iceberg list with, like, Suicide Club, Audition, Solo, 120 Days of Sodom, like, all of just the gross out horror movies that are meant for shock value. And just to, disturb the audience. But another one of Michael Haneke's movies is also on that list. Benny's Video. Benny's Video kind of lets you know what you're going into the minute you start watching it because it starts with a video that Benny filmed himself. Benny, our protagonist, is this little kid around the age of 14, 15 who is obsessed with videos. He goes to the video store. He buys video games. His parents buy them for them, actually, I should say. Speaking of his parents, they're absent in all of his life. They have no idea what this kid is doing or what this kid is about. They just leave him on their little trips and leave him money for videotapes to rent, money for pizza, money for video games. But little do his parents know that Benny is kind of obsessed with a certain type of videotape. Benny is so obsessed and disgustingly intrigued by filmed violence. Sure, of course, violence is kind of that shock factor in movies. Like, why do you go see a horror movie? Why do you go see Evil Dead Rise? You don't go because you're witnessing an entire family have a beautiful love story. No, you're going to see someone get their leg shredded up with a cheese grater. But Benny's kind of obsession starts to take a turn. We start the movie, little did we know, of a video that Benny took himself. That video is of a pig getting slaughtered by a rifle. One of those bolt rifles that are used to, like, kill animals, And later in the movie we find out he still has that rifle. And the ammo. And you can only assume what's going on next. Now, Benny's Video is one I didn't enjoy as much as Funny Games because, first of all, Funny Games is beautifully written and horrifyingly made because it's meant to make you feel those horrible feelings about yourself. But Benny's Video, I find, is quite dull. Oh, right. You're wanting my opinion. Well, if you want my opinion, you can always go to my letterbox at Plastic J's. Or Plastic J with no S, I think. I don't know. Uh, yeah, go follow me on letterbox. But since you're here, I might as well tell you. And also, it's a video essay. Like, what are we gonna expect here? I gave Funny Games a 3 out of 5? No, 2 out of 5 stars. I found that in its themes, it was interesting in what it showed and what it was trying to say. However, we kind of get lost in the sauce a bit as the movie goes on. The movie has an intense amount of pacing issues and an intense amount of dragging in its story and in its runtime. Because for the first 45 minutes, we're filled with this beautiful tension build and the graphic, horrifying nature of everything. But once that 45 minutes hits, the movie takes a real down slump and just goes into just absence and nothingness and just boring. Crazy, but boring. While Funny Games is perfectly paced, made the runtime feel like it flew by, and spent good times on building up the tension and the fear and the anxiety in its audience, giving you little sneak peeks on what truly was going on. I'm even getting goosebumps thinking about it. That movie horrified me so much. I get goosebumps every time I picture frickin' Paul's face looking back at you in the third wall breaking moments, you know? But in case you can't tell, yeah, I love Funny Games in like the most horrible way. And I won't go back to watch the 2007 remake because I've also heard it's just as good until I'm fully ready to watch it again, because I'd rather just like sit in this like kind of phase of still being horrified by the movie. In these two movies, Haneke explores the murder of innocence in a way. We see in Funny Games the beautiful, perfect family that we watch get tainted by the horrifying murders that the two manipulators incite. In Funny Games, Anna and George, I don't know how to pronounce his name, it's Georg, are seen bringing the yacht back into their gated community while everyone is playing golf. In Benny's video, we see Benny's family as they all reside in a fancy modern apartment with every single gadget you could find in Benny's room. But I don't want to sit and compare these two movies because they both are quite similar with similar ideas and also similar casts. Arno Frisch plays the video-obsessed Benny in Benny's Game and the sadistic and terrifying Paul in Funny Games. Ulrich Muhe is the father in both films, also named George in both films. But what I wanted to say is that both of these films showcase an extreme amount of catharsis. Catharsis, derived from the Greek word, is translated roughly as a sort of purging. We see our two movies and our two characters, both played by Arno Frisch, kind of doing a sort of emotional purging of sorts. One is more calculated, one is more of a calculated cleansing, and the other is more of a brutal and all-out attack of a cleansing. In Funny Games, the character of Paul is framed as the all-knowing and intelligent figure in the most horrific way. This specific conflict kind of targets Paul on his back as the all-seeing eye, even knowledgeable of an audience sitting behind the screen. Haneke makes these known to us through the most chilling use of breaking the fourth wall. It gives me the creeps, man. I knew it was so effective because the movie ends with Paul staring at the camera with an all-knowing, extremely uncomfortable glance at you as he tells the neighbors that he just incited with that he came from Anna and George's house. And we see him stand with that all-knowing glance for a full minute and 21 seconds as heavy metal music plays in the background. I could look at the screen for the first 2 seconds, but after, I couldn't look at the screen. I actually put my hand up and went, nope, I can't do this. I was so disturbed. But the best use of it was when the sadistic Paul was leading Anna on a sort of scavenger hunt. if you will. Paul is sending Anna to do his bidding for him, and then he incites that he needs to go find their dog. Paul looks at the camera right as Anna is about to find the dead dog, as the dead puppy flops out of a van. Like, are we serious right now, dude? That is horrible. Like, I know that we are supposed to feel disturbed by this movie, but at the same time, it is just so awful, but so beautifully done. You know what I mean? It's so, like, perfectly done. Through a fantastic build of that tension by the conflict between Anna and Paul, we see that Anna is sort of in a situation where she is kind of at a loss for words. There's no way for her to get out right now because she is stuck in that situation with these two people. One of the people was back at the house with her son and her husband. Paul is ensuring that she can't get away. And also, what do you do when you see your dead dog flop out of a car? You just... Like, what do? You just run away immediately? Especially when the killer of the dog is right in front of you? Like, what do you do? You know, fantastic build of tension by the conflict between Anna, Paul, and Peter, which Peter is a little fuckwad in this fucking movie. He is seen as this little innocent little toddler, kind of in the same way of like Neville Longbottom, if you will. Peter is sort of comes into Anna's house as we first see him, wearing quite a strange outfit: a white shirt, a white pair of pants, and some white gloves. Was he wearing pants or shorts? I can't remember. I think he was wearing pants. A white pair of pants and white gloves. Which is strange because, homie, what are you doing? You know? But he asks Anna for some eggs. And so she gives him the eggs. He drops the eggs, walks back in, and says, "Hey, I dropped them. Can you give me some more eggs?" She was like, "Yeah, I guess." So he grabs the eggs. He was like, "Can you wrap them for me to be safe this time?" She goes, "Yeah." Wraps the eggs for him. And then he dunks her cell phone in the sink. Anna is immediately pissed off because this kid, 1, wasted 4 eggs, 2, keeps coming back in and annoying the crap out of her for a reason she doesn't know. And then, on the final time, he walks away with the eggs, but this time he brings Paul with him. Paul, played by Arno Frisch, if you didn't know. Paul is sort of, like, gives off an Antonio Banderas suaveness to him in his appearance, and sort of tries to smooth talk his way through everything. He says, "Hey, are these new clubs, can I use them?" And she's, of course, uncomfortable with the idea, and she's like, "Yeah, whatever, I guess." And then Peter's like, "Could you give me another 4 eggs?" And she's like, "Why do you need the other 4 eggs?" He's like, and then Peter says, "I saw that you had, like, a dozen. You already said you were going back to the store tomorrow. You can just give me the 4 eggs again." And she is abhorrently shocked, you know? So then, of course, we see Paul wander back in with the golf club. He said he lost the ball. And little do we know that off-screen, he killed the dog with that same golf club. That's when everyone walks in, and Anna gets freaked out and asks them to leave, but they don't leave. The conflict arises to a point until Paul whacks Anna's husband with the golf clubs, breaking his knee. This is the instant shift into what we're about to see. It's terrifying, dude. It's beautifully built up. It's over a span of 30 minutes, but it's beautifully built up to a horrifying and just utterly graphic tension build, because what freaks me out is not just the graphic things we're seeing, but the extreme calmness in the 2 characters who are inciting the violence. The extreme levels of persuasiveness and, like, this is just a normal everyday thing when you're, like, you know, murdering people. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, Peter is Paul's annoyingly just naive friend who is kind of, like, just there. But Peter is Paul's annoyingly naive accomplice, and whenever I see that actor's face or just think of Peter in general in that movie, I feel instant and utter rage because he just is that like fucking angering. I can't even talk about him right now. Oh god. Okay. We see the first big blow. We see this first big blow of tension after everything boil over to a point where we see our family instantly get taken. This is where they all get taken hostage. Georgie, the son, is sobbing. Anna is freaked out to the point of fight or flight, and she's in flight. She's evacuated the scene. She's full dissociation vest. And so is her husband. The movie begins and ends with that sort of open-ended tendency. It opens with the two, Peter and Paul, going to Anna's house and asking for the eggs. And then it ends with Anna's family decimated. Anna drowned. George and Georgie all dead. And Peter and Paul just take their boat and travel away to wherever they want to go. And we see that they happen upon another family's house. And they come in with the same act that they began with. Hey, we need to come borrow something. We're coming from Anna's place. And they just get let inside. It gave me an overwhelming feeling of existential dread because we kind of see that this is a never-ending cycle for our characters. Even for us. It feels like all these acts of violence are for substantialism. Because we as an audience are just here helplessly watching an entire family get decimated. And we can't do anything. Just like in the real world, countless acts of violence are done in our world. And we just sit back and watch them on the news. Yeah, Haneke knew what he was doing with this movie, okay? Like, that was insanely poetic and insanely beautiful. And you would never think that a movie of this disturbing level would be that, like, poetic. Benny's video, to me, falls flat on all accounts of this. While it does deal with the acts of purging through violence, when he kills the girl from the video store with a captive bolt pistol, and he drags her away and shoots her 3 times, and we just are there to watch the live stream of her screaming, helplessly needing for some sort of help. And then she dies after a 3rd shot. However, the film takes a weird turn after this because Benny, killing her, tries to hide her body. And then his parents come home and they were watching TV in his room and he accidentally flips on the clip of him murdering the girl. I think he's doing this out of some sort of level of, like, proudness or wanting to show his parents. Like, it's like a dog showing up to your parents' doorstep with a dead bird. You know, it's his trophy. And his parents are appalled. But they react in such a strange way. Like, it takes a route that you would never really expect. His family are shocked by everything, but they choose not to report him. Their child murdered somebody, and they're choosing to not report him. You know why? In the scene where we witness his mother and father, George, and also named Anna, like, does he not have any, like, sorry, Haneke, but do you have, like, any variation on names? Like, just curious, you know? He sort of gives the parents of Benny a sort of really horrific look of, he's like, well, we can't report our son because then we will get arrested for reckless endangerment. And because we abandoned him and we'll be neglectful parents because he went off and killed somebody. So they choose not to report him and send him on a lovely vacation to Egypt with his mom. That's my first thought if my child kills somebody. Let's go straight to Egypt. Like, where did that come from, man? Well, his father stays home, and he and his mom go on this beautiful trip to Egypt. You know what his father does when he stays home? He chops the little girl's body into tiny pieces and flushes them down to the toilet. Do we see this? No, it's all off screen. It's all off screen. You can't make this up, okay? It's so, like, dumb to, like, do that because in funny games, they led with this show don't tell type scenario. And I think that tell don't show never works in a movie. And this is where that is so realistic because we just are left to assume that the father has done this and we just have to believe it because that's what his father said and the body's not there anymore. Do we see the body ever? No. If it's a disturbing movie, you would expect to see the body, but, you know, we wouldn't. Um, I do find it interesting, however, that riddled in this screenplay, Benny's parents would be held responsible for neglecting their child. I do find it interesting, however, because riddled in the screenplay, Benny's parents would also be held responsible for neglecting their child, so he could kill somebody. And then he would have to be placed in foster care. Well, it was a way to show that Benny's parents were naive and Benny's true malicious intent. It just kind of also showcased that showcased an idea of selfish people finding their own downfall with their actions. But again, that also falls flat. We don't really see that his parents' selfish nature falls flat in their face. It does because Benny's a horrible person. So, oh my god, the ending. The ending, dude. Okay, so we follow Benny get back from his trip to Egypt. His dad is like, yep, the body's gone. You're free. Don't ever do this thing again. So, in a quick little cut, we see Benny in a police confession, but not the type you would think. Because Benny is sort of seen in a position where he is completely innocent. And Benny is the one with all the information. He's got all the power, right? Benny is telling the police officers about everything and how his parents were discussing to get rid of the body. Benny flipped on his camcorder and recorded all of that footage of his parents freaking out the night that they found out Benny had killed somebody and how they were going to cover it up and make sure their child was okay. Benny recorded it, dude. So he took the footage to the police and said, hey officers, look at this. And it is seen in the confessional saying that his parents committed that crime. Benny is then seen exiting the confession room through a security cam footage. And all he says is a loose translation of sorry. And walks out. We then can only know what happened because Benny's parents then get called into the confession room and the movie ends. I love that ending. First of all, that's wild. That's crazy. But also, nothing builds up to that point. Of course, we see that Benny is malicious and he's just simply sitting there. But also, there's not enough to go on Benny's actions or Benny's true intent of malicious behavior and his catharsis of purging violence. Because it's done in a messy way and he simply never does it again. Until that point in the last 15 minutes of the movie when we see that he frames his parents. It's so troubling and weird, and a weird way to cap off that movie because it feels like a lot of what it was trying to say in its messaging got lost in the sauce and lost in the translation. Because we never truly know if his parents take the fall. If he only killed that one person. If he killed other people. Like, we don't know what Benny did specifically to do this, you know? Benny's complete loss of naivete and identity is what leads him to be able to be remorseless and anti-empathetic. He is operating on a sociopathic behavioral system in which he will do whatever he needs to survive. And if he needs to throw his parents under the bus to take the fall for him, he'll do it. I find it interesting to talk about Benny's video because a lot of that movie deals in subtext. I am able to closely look and dissect all of the intense power plays in those big moments because they're in those big moments. But that's where it feels lost, is that they're only in those small moments, and everywhere else, you can't dissect anything. You can't know what Benny's thinking because it doesn't frame Benny's mind in a way to think about what he's thinking about, you know? I think that that's why it falls short, because all of that beautiful progression we had in Funny Games for Paul and Peter was there. It's not for Benny. Haneke's filmography has an extent to feel graphic and perverse, and overall troubling with the way his writing frames our characters and the story that it's set in. I heard that his 2001 film, The Piano Teacher, was also insanely graphic, with starring literal legend Isabelle Huppert, but also I've seen it by now. In my script, I do have it written that I need to see it, but I've seen it now, and I think that it is the most beautiful way he's talked about catharsis and the purging of violence, even in like an erotic and sexual violence way. I still need to like dissect my thoughts on that movie because I watched it a week ago. I still feel so conflicted with everything. I loved it. I thought it was fantastically made. However, I still need to like grasp onto some things in that movie to be able to fully give you my thoughts on it. I've also heard the same for his 2001 film, Code Unknown, is that it's meant to make the audience feel not great about its characters and what is happening with everything going on. And now that I've seen 3 of his movies, I can honestly tell you that Haneke is a director to watch on, too. I know he's not made anything recently, but Michael Haneke is a brilliant director. Whether it's a really bad, low-budget horror movie or a really interesting psychological thriller that tries to frame the narrative in a way where you feel helpless as an audience. I think it's very poetic, and I think it's very well done. So, you can honestly hear from me that I'm going to be watching more Haneke movies in the future. Bet on it. But yeah. Again, all these opinions are my own. If you disagree with me, please write a comment. I would love to discuss. And I just want to say thank you for watching. Welcome to my first video on my channel. I'm so excited to be here. So if you enjoyed this, please stick around. Subscribe. Hit the like button. Turn on post notifications. Do all that fun stuff. And I will see you in a week when I post my next video essay. Spoiler alert, it's Barbie related. Yeah, you'll see I'm trying to frame it in a different way, but you'll see what it is next time. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!